Story number 1. The Smiling Man. When I was around 10 years old, I walked to the store around the corner from my house all by myself. I usually wasn't allowed to walk alone. My mom was busy and my dad wasn't home, so my mom gave me money and told me to go get a few things. This was a big deal. I was only 10, but my mom trusted me enough to go to the store on my own. I felt so free, so independent. I loved it. However, that day was just the beginning of what would be a horrible year for me and my family. I walked to the store. I kept the money hidden and I didn't stop or talk to anyone on the way there. My mom told me to walk straight back, so I did. It was a hot day. If you know anything about California, you'll know that in the summer it gets really hot. I decided to take a shortcut through the park. It would take me straight to my house, and then I could use the trees for shade. It wasn't a good idea to leave the open street, but I didn't think of it back then. I was about halfway through the park when I saw a man. He was wearing a hoodie, which I thought was a little weird given how hot it was. He was peeking out from behind a tree near the path. I slowed down a little when I realized that he was peeking out at me. I thought about turning back and heading towards the street, but I was already halfway to my house, and the idea of turning my back on the man scared me. I decided to push forward. I neared the tree he was peeking behind. I figured he didn't know that I had spotted him, since he darted back behind the tree as I got closer. I was worried that he would jump out at me when I walked past, so I took off running. I ran all the way home, never looking back to see if he was chasing me. When I got home, I looked out the window. No one was there. I decided that I had overreacted, so I didn't tell my mom about it. The next day, me and my siblings were playing in the street in front of our house. I had a younger sister and 2 older brothers. We all got along well and often played outside together. My brothers went inside to get us all drinks. My sister and I stayed on the front porch. That was when a man approached us. He was very tall and very thin. I remember his smile more than anything else. He had a huge smile, and it always seemed to stay plastered on his face, no matter what. He walked right up to the front porch with his hands in his pockets. I don't remember what we were talking about, but I remember that he knew our names. That's why we didn't run inside or try to call someone. He knew us. We thought he was a friend of our parents. Suddenly, I heard my brother shout from the doorway behind us. The man looked up, saw my brother, and ran. My brother dropped the drinks he had in his hand, shattering the glass all over the floor, and he ran after the guy. My older brother told us to get inside quick, and we called our parents. After that, things got a lot worse. The man would keep coming back to the house. He'd drive by in a blue car and lean out the window, waving at me and my sister. He'd always seem to show up whenever we went outside. My parents or my older brothers would always run out and chase him away when he did. Eventually, they stopped letting us go outside alone. He started calling the house every day. Sometimes he'd call twice a day, always late at night, and he'd always ask to talk to me or my little sister. I decided to tell my dad about the time I saw a man watching me when I walked through the park. He questioned me about it. He kept asking if I'd talked to the man at all. I told him that I didn't. I ran home without saying anything. That got my dad wondering how he knew our names. We got the police involved, but they couldn't do anything. My older brothers started to walk my sister and me to school and home when my parents couldn't drive us. We became so scared that he would show up at any second. It was like we weren't living our lives anymore. It was months down the line now, and we hadn't seen or heard from the smiling man in a while. I was with my sister in the playground after school, waiting for our mom to pick us up. Most of the children were gone already, and it was just us and the one teacher. She came out to tell us that our dad had just arrived to fetch us. We both thought that was odd, since it was supposed to be our mom. We didn't question it at first. We were young and we trusted our teacher. We ran outside, giggling and just being kids. That was when I saw the blue car. The smiling man was standing by the open door with his hands in his pockets. He looked at us and told us to get in. I stepped back, grabbing my sister's shoulders and pulling her with me. The man leaped forward, trying to snatch my sister's arm. I let out the loudest scream as I ran back towards the school. I held on to my sister's hand tightly, dragging her behind me. I kept screaming for the teacher, and she ran out to meet us. We reached her, and I turned around just in time to see the blue car drive away. The teacher called the police, and we waited inside until my mom finally came to pick us up. She was running late, and she had called the school to let them know that. The school said they received another call saying that our dad was going to pick us up instead. My dad denied that he ever made that call. We kept seeing that same car throughout the rest of the year. We'd see it drive by the school while we were on the playground, or we'd spot it parked a few streets down from our house. After what happened at school, he never got closer, and he never tried anything again. After a while, I stopped seeing the blue car. I don't know if he got bored and decided to stop stalking us, or if he just got better at hiding from us. Story number 2. Want some candy? When I was around 17 years old, my parents took us all to the circus. I wasn't interested at the time, but both my younger sister and brother were only 7 and 12, so the trip was mostly for them. I enjoyed it as best I could. I got to go on some of the bigger rides, but eventually my sister got upset that I was going on rides without her. I spent the rest of the day going with her on the smaller, less fun rides. My brother, who was 12 and convinced that he was the man of the house when my father wasn't around, usually ran off on his own. He disappeared, and when I got off one of the rides with my little sister, I found my parents in hysterics. I calmed them down and we split up to look for them. My father got into his car and drove around the parking lot. My mother went to go find some security guards. I took my little sister and began searching the different rides and attractions. I knew my brother loves clowns, even though my mother had a huge fear of them, so that was the first place I looked. There was a large tent set up right in the center of the circus. We'd strategically avoided it, but I knew my brother wanted to go since we arrived. I was about to go inside when I spotted my brother. He was around the back of the tent, and it looked like he was talking to someone. I put my sister down and walked slowly towards him. As I got around the tent, I saw one of the clowns hunched over and talking with my brother. I didn't think anything of it, so I announced myself and called out to my brother. The clown straightened up instantly. He glared at me and walked away. I thought it was odd. I asked my brother what he wanted. He said that the clown asked him if he wanted candy, but that he didn't take any. My parents were spooked, even though I found my brother, so we went home after that. I decided not to tell my parents about the encounter, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way that clown glared at me and walked away gave me the creeps. My parents let my siblings stay up late that night to make up for leaving the circus early. They were exhausted, though. I agreed to watch my brother and sister while they got an early night. We watched a movie and had a few snacks. I was ready to go to bed myself, but I promised them we could watch one more movie. My brother jumped up and rushed to the kitchen to get more snacks. There was a glass sliding door you had to walk past on the way to the kitchen. I watched out of the corner of my eye as my brother stopped, turned to look out the sliding door, and wave at someone. My heart sank in my chest, and a lump formed in my throat. I shot to my feet and rushed over to him. I peered out through the door, my breath steaming up the glass. The garden was pitch black, and I couldn't see anything. I asked him who he was waving to, and he told me it was the clown. I grabbed his hand and made him sit on the couch next to my sister. I pulled the curtain closed over the sliding door and then ran through the rest of the house, making sure all the windows and doors were locked. I thought about going upstairs to wake up my parents. That was when I heard a knock at the front door. Our front door had one of those old-fashioned letter slots. I stared at the door in horror as the slot opened up and a red, gloved hand squeezed through. The hand opened up and candy dropped to the floor. The sound it made as it hit the wooden floorboards and bounced still haunts me to this day. I grabbed my siblings and took them up the stairs. I woke my parents up and told them what was happening. We called the police, but by the time they got there, the clown was gone. They agreed to patrol the area for the rest of the night in case he came back. The fact that he was able to follow us all the way home is what scared me the most. Now, just like my mother, I have an extreme fear of clowns. Story number 3, Always Mine. When I was in high school, I had a stalker. There was this girl, her name was Cindy, and she used to sit on the bus right behind me and stare at me the whole ride. She'd follow me in the hallways, and she even joined a few of my classes in order to stay close to me. I ignored her at first, but things got really creepy, really fast. She would show up at my house and tell my parents I invited her over. She once climbed up to my bedroom window on the second floor and tapped on it in the middle of the night while I was sleeping. I'll never forget that creepy smile she gave me when I pulled the curtains back. She'd leave me gifts in my locker at school, things like poems, pictures of her, and notes. All the notes would always say the same thing: "You'll always be mine." At some point, I decided to get the school's counselor involved. Both he and the principal sat down with Cindy and her parents. They moved out of town, and Cindy was enrolled in a different school. I never saw her again. A few years later, I graduated and moved into the dorms at my college. I had managed to get the same room as my best friend. We were so ready to start our lives. Not too long after I started my classes, I met Ella. She was amazing. She was smart, funny, beautiful, and she liked me. We hung out so much that my friend actually got a bit jealous of her. He started to tell me how creepy she was and that I needed to dump her. I brushed off his comments. She wasn't that creepy. She did want to spend a lot of time with me, but I liked her so much that I didn't mind. Not too long after that, I got back to my dorm after my last class of the day to find Ella sitting on my bed. She was waiting for me. When I asked her how she got in, she told me that the door wasn't locked, so she let herself in and decided to wait for me. It was a little weird, especially since I knew I had locked the door, but I still thought that she was sweet enough to wait for me. It got a little weirder after that. She started sending me gifts, and I mean a lot of gifts. Sometimes she would send me like 5 a day. The gifts were always things that I loved. Now, that might seem okay, but these were things I didn't tell her that I liked. Once I found a pack of Oreos sitting inside my car on the passenger seat with a note from her. Oreos were my favorite, but I never told her that. Also, my car was locked and I had no idea how she got the gift inside. I decided to distance myself from her, but that only made it worse. She stalked me around campus and jumped out at me from behind walls and benches. She said she was being playful. While all this was happening, my roommate decided to do some digging on her. He found out that she wasn't even a student at the college. She was on campus all day, but she didn't go there. I broke up with her. It was just too weird after that point. Later on, me and my roommate got back to the dorm after a night out drinking to find another gift from her. This time, it was inside the dorm. We had locked the door and only we had a key each. The gift was a bouquet of flowers and a note that said, "You'll always be mine." My heart sunk to the floor and the blood in my veins turned cold. It was the same handwriting and the same words. I dropped the note and called the police. My friend was confused, but I explained later. The police got involved and there was a whole investigation. They found out that Ella was really Cindy from my high school. Her full name was Cinderella, and both names were just shortened versions. She had stolen my key for both my car and room at one point and cut copies for herself. I couldn't stay after that. I transferred colleges and the police kept looking for her. They never found her, and I have spent my whole life looking over my shoulder, expecting to see her right behind me. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and subscribe right away. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notifications of more terrifying videos.